Welcome aboard Mystic Podcast Cruise, where every episode is a voyage into the unknown. Rather, hearing directly from the individuals themselves, our hosts, Jake Hart and Zahra Moon, dive deep into these stories, each one drawn from personal accounts found from various sources. We explore the details, examine the context, and provide commentary to help you better understand these extraordinary experiences. So grab your favorite beverage or set your cruise control to the legal speed limit and journey with us beyond the veil, one episode at a time.
Welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah,
Today we're tackling a topic that I think is really going to get your mind spinning.
definitely.
It's all about alien encounters,
Mm.
but not just like your typical, little green men from Mars kind of thing.
Right.
We're going to be looking at a firsthand account from a guy named Yosi Ronen, and his experience raises some seriously thought-provoking questions about the nature of consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Reality.
his story really kind of pushes you to reconsider.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that Ronan's story, it's all out there. In this interview he did on the Jeff Maher podcast on YouTube.
It is.
So you can check it out yourself and see what you think.
I highly recommend it.
So, okay, we've got this one man's experience with beings that are, well, they're not exactly what you picture when you think of aliens.
Yeah, not your typical grays.
Right, more like I guess you could say green grays.
Kind of. Yeah.
But it's not just about what they looked like. It's about what Ronan says he learned from them, about our own potential.
Like, what are we capable of? What is consciousness, really?
That's the big question, right? And what can this experience, this one encounter, tell us about, well, I guess you could say everything.
The nature of reality, our place in the universe, it's all up for grabs here.
So buckle up, everyone, because this is going to be a wild ride.
It is a wild ride.
I think one of the things that makes this case so interesting is that it came totally out of left field for this guy.
Oh, yeah, he was just living his life, minding his own business, and bam,
Yeah, so
alien
was
encounter.
prior interest in UFOs or anything like that?
Like, he wasn't searching for this, it found him.
The condom, yeah.
Which is, pretty common in these kinds of cases, actually.
Interesting.
It makes you wonder.
So let's get into the details.
Okay.
Who is Yosi Ronen and what exactly happened to him?
All right, so we're talking late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
Ronen is in his early 20s, living in L.A., working with his brother, pretty normal life.
Just another day in LA.
Right. And then this is where it gets weird.
Okay, on the edge of my seat here.
It starts with an out-of-body experience.
Whoa.
He finds himself floating above his bed, looking down at his own body.
That's gotta be freaky.
And that when he sees them, these beings are just standing there in his room.
Hold on, so he's having an out-of-body experience, sees aliens, and then what?
Whoa.
That's gotta be terrifying, right?
That's where it gets even weirder.
Laying it on me.
He says that during the out-of-body part, he wasn't afraid.
Really?
Yeah, he describes this feeling of familiarity,
Huh.
peace, like he was reuniting with old friends almost.
That's so strange.
But then he wakes up in his body, he's face to face with these beings.
Mad at.
That's when the fear kicks in.
Oh. I can see how that would be a little jarring.
Yeah, a bit of a shock to the system.
So were these the classic, gray aliens we see in the movies?
They had some of those features,
Okay.
like the large heads, big eyes,
Yeah.
but with some key differences.
Okay, I gotta know, what kind of differences are we talking about?
Well, the most striking one was their skin.
Oh,
It was green, like a vibrant, almost shocking green.
green. Wow, okay, that's not something you see every day.
Definitely not.
And what about their eyes? Were they I don't know, almond-shaped?
They were large and elliptical,
Okay.
but they were oriented vertically.
Vertically, up and down.
Yeah, not horizontally.
Wow, that's a new one.
It's definitely unique.
So they're just standing there, these green-skinned aliens with vertical eyes.
Yeah.
Did they, I don't know, do anything? Threaten him? Probe him or something?
Nothing like that.
Really?
He said they were just observing him,
Okay.
not aggressive at all.
I guess that's a little less scary than some of the other stories you hear.
Right.
But still, imagine that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
You're being watched by these beings with technology and abilities that are just beyond anything you can imagine.
The sense of otherness must have been overwhelming.
I bet. So how did they communicate with him? Was it telepathic mind control?
No, it wasn't like that at all.
Okay.
Ronen described it as a merging of consciousness.
What?
Yeah, like a sense of one.
It's not like a back and forth conversation.
More like a blending of minds.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
It is, and this is where things start to get really deep.
Deep how?
Because Ronan believes that this telepathic communication, this merging of consciousness, revealed something profound about who we are as humans.
So these weren't just some random visitors from another planet.
Right.
They were trying to communicate something deeper, something about our own potential.
That's what makes this case so compelling.
Okay, I'm hooked. What was this message, and how did Ronan interpret it? Like, what did these green-skinned telepathic aliens want him, and us, I guess, to know?
Well, that's a great question, and that's what we're going to dig into next. Ronan walked away from this experience believing that the aliens were communicating some key ideas, like really profound stuff.
Okay, like,
Well, first off, he felt like they were saying that humans were spiritual beings.
okay, but people say that all the time, we have a spirit.
Yeah, but this was different.
How so?
It wasn't just that we have a spirit, it was more like our fundamental nature is spiritual. Like that's who we are at our core.
So it's not just this thing we have, it's like what, our essence.
Exactly. It's like our physical bodies, they're just this tiny part of who we really are.
Wow, that's a pretty big concept to grasp.
It is. It really kind of flips our usual way of thinking on its head.
Yeah, in the West, we tend to be very focused on, the material world, what we can see and touch.
Exactly, but this is pointing to something much bigger, something beyond the physical.
So if we're these spiritual beings at our core, what else were they trying to tell him?
Well, this is where the idea of interconnectedness comes in.
Interconnectedness.
Remember how we described that telepathic communication as this merging of consciousness?
Yeah, like their minds were blending together.
Right, and Ronan felt like this wasn't just a way to share information.
It was more than that.
He believed it was a glimpse into how we're all connected on this deeper level.
Connected how?
Like we're all part of this universal web of consciousness.
Okay, so it's not like they're separate beings sending thoughts back and forth. It's more like
we're all tuned into the same radio frequency, just most of us haven't figured out how to switch on the receiver.
I like that. That's a great analogy.
And this ties into the next point, which was more of a warning, I guess you could say.
A warning.
About what?
Ronan felt like they were trying to convey this sense of urgency about the direction humanity is headed.
Like we're on a bad path.
Yeah, like a path towards self-destruction.
But they weren't going to step in and stop us or anything.
No, it wasn't about them judging us or controlling us.
It was more like
a deep concern, like they were trying to wake us up to the consequences of our actions.
So it's less about them stopping some impending disaster and more about us changing course. Exactly. It was like they were saying, hey, you guys are headed down a dangerous road. You need to wake up and see where this is going.
And was there anything specific that kind of drove that point home?
Actually, yeah. Ronan had this vision during the encounter.
What was it?
He saw this beautiful, peaceful, natural scene.
Okay.
And then suddenly it was engulfed in flames.
Oh, wow.
And he interpreted that as this symbolic warning about what could happen if we don't change our ways.
That's a pretty powerful image, makes you think.
It does. And that leads to the next question.
Right, it is.
Okay, so they're warning us about this self-destructive path, but what are we supposed to do about it? How do we change course?
Right, what's the solution?
And that's where the idea of expanding our consciousness comes in.
Expanding our consciousness.
Yeah, Ronan believes that they were advocating for a shift in human awareness.
Like a shift away from what?
Away from this purely materialist worldview.
So, like, stop being so focused on the physical world.
Right, and start embracing our spiritual nature.
So it's not just about being nice to each other or saving the environment or whatever.
It's about a fundamental shift in how we see ourselves and our place in the universe.
So like a total paradigm shift.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness and realizing that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Wow. It sounds like this experience really rocked his world.
He described it as ontological shock.
Meaning?
It wasn't just new information. It was a challenge to his entire worldview. Like everything he thought he knew about reality was suddenly up for grabs.
That makes sense. It wasn't just a close encounter. It was like, what, an existential crisis.
In a way, yeah, it was that profound.
So what did he do after that?
Well, he actually quit his job.
No way, really?
Yeah, he just couldn't go back to his normal life after this.
That's wild. So what did he do instead?
He turned to art and spiritual exploration, trying to make sense of what he had experienced.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder, if we all had an experience like that, would it shake us out of our complacency?
It's a good question. Would it force us to reevaluate our priorities?
I mean, talk about a wake-up call, right?
For sure. But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Oh, there's more.
After the encounter, Ronan started experiencing some really strange things with his senses.
Like what?
He reported experiencing synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Yeah, where his senses were all mixed up.
Mixed up how?
Like he could hear colors and see energy fields around people.
Wait, so he could see auras?
That's what he described, yeah.
Like those colorful halos some people say they see around others?
Exactly. He even described seeing this one neighbor. The guy looked physically tired and sad. But Ronan saw this bright, vibrant field of light surrounding him.
Like he was radiating positive energy even though he wasn't consciously aware of it?
That's how Ronan interpreted it, yeah.
It's like the aliens flipped a switch in his brain or something.
Maybe.
Well,
It's hard to say for sure.
so do you think this was just some kind of weird after effect of the encounter?
It's definitely possible.
Or could it be that the aliens somehow triggered this expanded perception in him?
I mean, that's a really intriguing possibility, isn't it?
It is, and it raises even more questions.
Like, what if this synesthesia, these heightened senses, are actually a glimpse into that expanded consciousness the aliens were talking about?
Like, what if we all have the potential to perceive reality in this way if we knew how to tap into it?
Exactly. It's mind-blowing to think about.
Okay, so let's recap for a second. We've got these green-skinned telepathic aliens.
Right.
They merge their consciousness with Ronan, give him this warning about humanity, and then suddenly he's got these expanded perceptions.
It's a lot to process, for sure.
It is. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
But remember, the aliens didn't just appear and disappear like magic. There was that really strange departure scene Ronan described.
Oh, yeah. They joined hands, spun around really fast, turned into this blur of light, and then poof, vanished.
But not entirely. He could still sense their presence even after they were physically gone.
What do you make of that? Yeah, it's like they slipped through some kind of crack in reality.
It's like they phased out of our dimension.
Right. And that brings up the whole concept of interdimensional travel. Like maybe they're not from another planet at all.
Maybe they're from another dimension altogether.
Which would explain why we don't see them just hanging around all the time.
Exactly. They could be shifting in and out of our reality.
So it's like we're on one frequency and they're on another, and they can tune into ours when they want to make contact.
That's a great way to put it.
And then when they're done, they just switch back to their own frequency and vanish.
And that makes you think about all those UFO sightings. You know, those unexplained lights in the sky.
Are some of those just glimpses of interdimensional beings popping in and out of our reality?
It's definitely a possibility.
That's pretty trippy to think about.
It is, but let's go back to Ronan's experience for a second.
Okay.
He didn't just see these beings. He felt like they were trying to communicate something specific.
And it wasn't like they just came right out and said, hey, humans are spiritual beings or anything like that.
It was more subtle, more experiential.
Like they orchestrated this whole encounter to guide him towards a certain realization.
Exactly. It was like they were leading him through a series of experiences that would ultimately lead him to that understanding on his own.
Which is pretty clever when you think about it.
It is, and it makes you think about the nature of belief, you know? It wasn't about blind faith.
It was about direct experience.
Exactly. It was about guiding him to a point where he could experience his own spiritual nature directly.
And that raises a big question for us, right?
Yeah.
If we accept the premise that we are, at our core, spiritual beings,
And what does that mean for our lives?
how does that change our understanding of our purpose, our potential?
Good questions.
And I don't think there's a simple answer.
No, but maybe that's the whole point of exploring these kinds of stories, you know?
To push us to think outside the box.
To consider possibilities that go beyond our everyday experience.
To question our assumptions about reality and what's possible.
Exactly. It's about expanding our horizons and opening ourselves up to new ways of seeing the world.
And I think Yosi Ronen's story does exactly that, whether you take it literally or metaphorically.
It challenges us to think differently about who we are,
About the nature of consciousness.
about the potential that might be hidden within us.
The potential we might not even be aware of.
And it reminds us that there's still so much we don't know.
So much to explore, so much to discover.
And maybe, just maybe,
We're capable of far more than we ever imagined.
if we're willing to open ourselves to those possibilities.
That's a powerful thought, and I hope it's something our listeners will take away from this deep dive.
Me too.
If Yosi Ronen's story has resonated with you, if it's sparked your curiosity,
Or challenge your beliefs.
we'd love to hear your thoughts, share your reflections in the comments,
And join us next time.
for another deep dive into the unknown.
Thank you for cruising with us on Mystic Podcast Cruise. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us bring you more intriguing and thought provoking podcasts. Stay curious, and we will see you on the next adventure.